Hello students, how are you? I hope you all are good and safe. Today in this video, we are going to read chapter number 6, The Apple Tree of our English book, The English Coach. It is written by Catherine Mansfield. Many discoveries in human history have happened by chance, triggered by the curious nature of humans. Great scientist Newton discovered the law of gravity while he sat under a tree and an apple fell on him. Here is a story where a farmer, along with his friend, discovers an exotic looking apple tree in his orchard, which he thinks will bear the most delicious fruit in the world ever tasted. Find out what happens when the apples are ripe and ready to be eaten. This is going to be a very interesting story. Let me tell you summary first. It starts out with a house looking out to two orchards. The family and their close friend discover an apple tree on the land. The father believes the apples are rare and valuable, and he does not let anyone touch the apples. When the apples ripen, he decides to taste them, to try them. The father cuts the apple and serves a few slices to his children. Lying to please their father, they told him it was delicious until father tried a piece. And honestly, it was a very bad taste. Now, reading time. There were two orchards belonging to the old house. One, that we called the wild orchard, lay beyond the vegetable garden. It was planted with bitter cherries and damsons and transparent yellow plums. For some reason, it lay under a cloud. We never played there or did not even trouble to pick up the fallen fruit. And there, every Monday morning, to the round open space in the middle, the servant girl and the washerwoman carried the wet linen, grandmother's night dresses, father's striped shirts, and the hired man's cotton trousers. But the other orchard, far away and hidden from the house, lay at the foot of a little hill and stretched right over to the edge of the paddocks. There, under the fruit trees, the grass grew so thick and coarse that it tangled and knotted in your shoes as you walked, and even on the hottest day it was damp to touch when you stooped and parted it this way and that, looking for windfalls, the apples and quinces, so good to eat with a pinch of salt. One year, the orchard had its forbidden tree. It was an apple tree, discovered by father and a friend during an after-dinner prowl one Sunday afternoon. "Great Scott!" said the friend, lighting upon it with every appearance of admiring astonishment. "Isn't that a—" And a rich, splendid name settled like an unknown bird upon the tree. "Yes, I believe it is," said father lightly. He knew nothing whatever about the names of fruit trees. "Great Scott," said the friend again. "They are wonderful apples, nothing like them, and you are going to have a tip-top crop. Marvelous apples, you can't beat them." "No, they are fine, very fine," said father carelessly, but looking upon the tree with new and lively interest. "They are rare, they are very rare. Hardly ever seen them in England nowadays," said the visitor, and set a deal on father's delight. For father was a self-made man, and the price he had to pay for everything was so huge and so painful that nothing rang so sweet to him as to hear his purchase praised. He was young and sensitive still. He still wondered whether in the deepest sense he got his money's worth. And now to discover that he had a valuable included in with the orchard, an apple tree, that his friend from England positively envied. "Don't touch that tree. Do you hear me, children?" said he, blunt and firm, and when the guest had gone, with quite another voice and manner. "If I catch either of you touching those apples, you shall not only go to bed, you shall each have a good sound whipping." This merely added to the tree's magnificence and how much it meant to father. Every Sunday morning after lunch, father, with Bogie and me tailing after, walked through the flower garden, down the violet path, past the lacebark tree, past the rose and syringe bushes, and down the hill to the orchard. The apple tree seemed to have been miraculously warned of its high honor, standing apart from its fellows, bending a little under its rich clusters, fluttering its polished leaves, important and exquisite before father's awful eye. His heart swelled to the sight. We knew his heart swelled. He put his hand behind his back and screwed up his eyes in the way he had. There it stood, the accidental thing, the thing that no one had been aware of when the hard bargain was driven. It had not been counted in, had not in a way been paid for. If the house had been burnt to the ground at that time, it would have meant less to him than the destruction of this tree. And now we played up to him, Bogie and I, Bogie with his scratched knee pressed together, his hands behind his back. The apples turned from pale green to yellow. Then they had deep pink stripes painted on them, and the pink melted all over the yellow, reddened and spread into a fine, clear crimson. At last, the day came when father took out his waistcoat pocket a little pearl pen knife. He reached up. Very slowly and very carefully he picked two apples growing on a bough. "By Jove, they are warm!" cried father in amazement. "They are wonderful apples! Tip-top, marvelous!" he echoed. He rolled them over in his hands. "Look at that! Not a spot! Not a blemish!" And he walked through the orchard with Bogie and me stumbling after, to a tree stump. We sat one on either side of father. He laid one apple down, opened the pearl pen knife, and neatly and beautifully cut the other in half. "By Jove, look at that!" he exclaimed. "Father," we cried, dutiful but really enthusiastic too. For the lovely red color had bitten right through the white flesh of the apple. It was pink to the shiny white pips lying so justly in their scaly pods. It looked as though the apple had been dipped in wine. "Never seen that before," said father. "You won't find an apple like that in a hurry." He put it to his nose and pronounced an unfamiliar word. "Bouquet. What a bouquet!" And then he handed to Bogie one half and to me the other. "Don't bolt it," said he. It was an agony to give even so much away. I knew it. While I took mine humbly and humbly Bogie took his. Then he divided the second with the same neat, beautiful little cut of the pearl knife. I kept my eyes on Bogie. Together we took a bite. Our mouth was full of a floury stuff, a hard, faintly bitter skin, a horrible taste of something dry. "Well," asked father, very jovial. He had cut his two halves into quarters and was taking out the little pods. "Well?" Bogie and I stared at each other, chewing desperately. In that moment of chewing and swallowing, a long silent conversation passed between us, and a strange meaning smiled. We edged near father, just touching him. "Perfect," we lied. "Perfect, father, simply lovely." But it was of no use. Father spat his out and never went near the apple tree again. This was a wonderful story written by Catherine Mansfield. Thank you.